Earlier, I said the oversimplified point of beginning. Here are some details. In spite of the fact that there are many complicated parts that make up the economic collapse, we only need one word to define the entire era. Now, you're probably expecting greed or power or control, but the word is harvest. There's no better analogy than farming because there is a time of planting, a time of cultivating, and a time of harvest. The planting is a series of events that go back to 1920. It's the alteration of banking regulations to allow possible future earnings to be counted as real profit now instead of in the future where it belongs. And it's the cultural mindset shift from patience to instant satisfaction. The cultivation is the manipulation of financial products into position so their possible future earnings can be bought, sold, and traded. It's the manipulation of the public at large to desire more and more, even if it means financial disaster. It's important to note that this manipulation occurred within the heart and mind of every individual. We have no one to blame but ourselves. And the harvest? Well, let's don't get ahead of ourselves. Back to planting. There was a time when banks had to have actual cash on hand to back up their customers' deposits. This cash could be either in the bank's vault or in the vault of another bank or invested in the Federal Reserve or stored as gold in Fort Knox. It was real money with real immediate value, and it could be physically touched and counted by a human being. The planting occurred when the banking regulations were quietly sidestepped, then legally altered so imaginary money from the future could be counted as if it was real cash in the present. The United States Securities and Exchange Commission approved an accounting method called mark-to-market. Mark-to-market accounting allows that once a long-term contract is signed, income is estimated as the present value of net future cash flows. While using the method, future profit can be recorded in the present books, although this profit might not ever be received as actual money. But increasing profits based on imaginary future cash are shown on the present books as if it's real. Enron became a household word when it became the first non-financial company to use mark-to-market accounting for its complex long-term contracts. I want you to pay special attention that Enron learned this trick from the financial sector. Here's an example of one of Enron's mark-to-market accounting structures. For one contract in July of 2000, Enron and Blockbuster Video signed a 20-year agreement to introduce on-demand entertainment to various U.S. cities by the end of the year. Now, this was actually a good idea, but it was too far ahead of technology, so it didn't work. After several pilot projects, Enron recognized estimated future profits of more than $110 million from the deal. Now, these future profits were placed into the books and showed a fake present value for the company, which inflated the company's value by many millions of dollars. This fooled stockholders, economists, investors, and the people in charge of writing bonus checks for the executives who were telling this huge lie. When the network failed to work, Blockbuster pulled out of the contract, but Enron continued to recognize future profits even though the deal resulted in a loss. It's very important for you to remember that in mark-to-market accounting, even failed future profit still equals counted present profit. Mark-to-market accounting is a trick in the most vile sense of the word which will make a medium-sized company look huge so it appears more attractive to investors by proving the company's worth by counting profits which are in the future. However, in future years, these profits can't be included when they actually happen because they've already been counted in the past. So new additional income has to be cultivated from more future projects to develop additional growth and then keep that growth expanding like a bubble. For cultivation, the mark-to-market accounting practice works the same with any kind of debt. A home mortgage is a typical target for mark-to-market accounting. Keep this in mind. A mortgage, like any kind of loan, is unpaid debt, and unpaid debt has a present value of 0. Let's take a look at one single mortgage. Mortgages are rated AAA and down. Now there are many different grades than the ones I have shown here, but I'm going to deal with just these. There's a AAA rating, which is a loan that will definitely be paid no matter what happens. A AA rating, which will most likely probably be paid. Someone may get sick and miss one payment, but they'll always make an effort to make up the difference. Then there's A, which is a home mortgage that will sometimes be paid. These are people that might fall behind 2-3 months. They might even get a foreclosure notice, but they will work to catch up on the payments. They don't want to lose their home, but they struggle with it. And then there are the people who will never pay the mortgage. What makes a mortgage become AAA? To qualify as AAA, a mortgage only has to be in the top percentage bracket when compared to other mortgages. So this one ended up in the top compared to all of the other ones. To make money from this, we can take a look at several mortgages. We put together a package of them, and we've got these that are called AAA on the top, which we can combine into an instrument called a collateralized debt obligation. Now, this is crazy. This is the moment when we take nothing and we call it something, and we sell it to someone who knows they're buying nothing, but they buy it anyway. And our entire economy is based on this. Then we can take that CDO, collateralized debt obligation, and we sell it to somebody. Now, we can do the same thing with the AA tiers. We take the AA mortgages and we can combine them into a collateralized debt obligation, which we can sell to someone. But then we run out of mortgages. Well, there's actually a way to increase the volume that we can have. We can take AA mortgages and we can stack them all up in a box until we have them a big collection together. We have the best AA mortgages and we have the worst AA mortgages, but they're all AA. Then we take the top percentage. Remember, to qualify for AAA, it's only the top percentage compared to all other mortgages. Then we rename those. We can put them into a package that's called a AAA collateralized debt obligation, and we can sell that to somebody. But now we have sold all of our AA and all of our AAA mortgages, but we want to keep making money. So how can we keep making money if we run out of good mortgages? The answer, we sell the bad ones as if they were good. All we have to do is rake in enough bad debt that we can put it down in the bottom. Then we can take the not so good mortgages that we had before, they will float to the top. Then we take that top tier up there, we rename it AAA, we combine it into a collateralized debt obligation that we could sell to someone. Now here's a special note. Real AAA CDOs are almost indistinguishable from fraudulent AAA CDOs. But in their haste to make money, even the experts fail to notice the difference. Now this is a good place to ask these questions. How is this even possible? How can they do this? Isn't this against the law? And who's in charge and why don't they stop this? Well, there is a financial device perfected in the 90s. It's called a derivative, which means to derive or protect more value from something that is less valuable. In this case, it's a mortgage debt. Now, an unpaid debt is worth nothing. The goal is to sell nothing as if it is something. The derivative changes the name from nothing to something. Then people can buy a derivative as if it's something, but it's actually nothing. This is crazy, but they do it anyway. None of these processes is regulated in any way at all. That's why it's not illegal. There are no rules or laws or policies or ethics regarding these. In the 1990s, however, a federal department called the Commodities Futures Trading Commission raised alarms against the practice of selling derivatives. Brooksley Bourne, the chairperson of that committee, was fired for raising the flags. You see, the ones who gain the most are the ones who prevent the rules from being made. Legislation to set guidelines for the sale of derivatives has been presented to Congress almost every year since the mid-1990s, and it has failed every time. It is still happening. Now, this represents the common interest rate. It's a fluctuation up and down of 1 or 2% that might happen from the time you decide that you want to build or buy a house, and you go through a process that you don't know for sure whether the interest rate is going to be low or if it's going to be high by the time you actually close the loan. So when you qualify, you have to qualify according to what the projected peak is of those mortgage interest rates right there. Now, this line represents people who will never qualify. You can see the difference. You need to be up here to qualify for a mortgage, but this is as far as they ever come, as close as they ever get. But we want to take those people and bring them in order to raise our debt levels up so that we can sell more CDOs. Remember? So we have our interest rate and the people who qualify and the people who don't qualify. Now remember, our goal is to sell more CDOs, and if they're AAA, we make more money. The problem is we've run out of good AAA and AA mortgages. All we have left is fair to poor mortgages, but they don't qualify as AAA or AA. So the solution is to rake in bad mortgages to make the poor ones look better by comparison. And there's a device for that. It's called a subprime loan, where we artificially lower the interest rate until suddenly the people who couldn't qualify now do. Then they can go along happily making those payments. Now the thing to remember though, there's no free ride. And we've got this savings, it's not a gift to those people, that has to be added back on somewhere to make up the difference so that they actually pay what everybody else does, because this is profit and loss and sales and not sales. So there's a device called the adjustable rate balloon note, and what happens here is that the rate is adjusted up high enough to compensate for this low that was given to them to get them in the first place. But look what happens when the balloon note starts. They can no longer make their payments. These all get foreclosed on and they lose. But now everyone is part of a CDO. We have the people who are able to make their mortgage payments, and we have the people who can never make their mortgage payments. They're all involved. This is the moment of harvest when everyone is involved, because you see, it doesn't matter if the mortgages are paid or not. They're all part of CDOs floating out there in the future. This gathering of the harvest includes home mortgages, car loans, credit cards like 0% starting rates. You don't think for a minute that you're actually getting it for zero, do you? Because that 0% is going to be added on somewhere else and you'll actually pay more. Then it includes payday loans and title pawn loans. And let's look at title pawn loans for just a minute. If there are any political activists out there, I want you to join me to stamp out this industry, because this is a scam that's taking our poor country to the cleaners. First of all, this is a type of debt that's easy to get into. It has ridiculously high interest rates. It's almost impossible to get out of. It does wreck credit scores, and it ruins young lives, and it traps everyone that's involved. Even this industry recognizes that it's a ridiculous problem, and so they have offered a solution, title pawn debt relief. It's another loan that you borrow to get out of the title pawn loan that lowers your payments and saves you lots of money. There's an advertisement on television now that's talking about saving you a lot of money, but they will actually add $1,000 to your credit line so that you can buy something special for yourself. And people don't realize that that $1,000 is added onto the loan, and when it gets up higher, it adds to the interest rate and it makes the payments go back up again. So recognizing that there's always going to be a problem with that, I won't be surprised if we have the title pawn debt relief program, and then later the relief program. And the thing to remember is that the title pawn people and the title pawn debt relief people and the title pawn debt relief people are all the same ones. They're the same people on all of these breaking in this money. So they take that debt from those poor people with the title pawn loans and all types of other debt, credit card debt, car loans, you name it. They make the muddy water at the bottom, which floats these other loans to the top. Then we're able to change the top percentage because by comparison it looks good. We change the name to AAA. Then we float the AAA up until it becomes part of a collateralized debt obligation, and we can take that and we can sell it to someone. From 2005 to 2007, there was a financial device called a liar's loan, where the buyer's income was never revealed to the lender. Lenders only wanted to know that the house had been appraised and that the borrower had a job and a reasonable credit rating, usually above 700. By 2005, the credit requirements were eliminated. I did my very own muddy water experiment in 2005. I was able to apply for and qualify for a liar's loan for $450,000 with only 2 phone calls. I didn't have to verify my income or my credit, and I didn't even have to prove that the house had been appraised, only that it had a real street address. This was the moment when they were raking everything possible in to make the bad debt make the good debt float to the top. So the harvest is in. Everyone is involved, every debt is included, every last dime is gathered. But it only works if each individual says, I'm in. That's how we got here.